did that because I think that's more of the victim's problem.
Yeah.
If they've got into that situation where they've been on the end of horse sodomy.
Unless the horse was on the end, so to speak. I mean, we don't know who was Batman and who was Robin.
Yeah, well, that's true. Always, if the horse has been arrested after being sodomized,
now he's had a terrible,
that's an
terrible
awful
turn of events.
Welcome to the Gaps in Knowledge podcast. I'm Rhys, and I'm a geographer that knows nothing about history.
And I'm Will. I'm a historian who knows nothing about geography.
And we are on a quest to fill each other's
Gaps in knowledge. All right.
Hello, Will. How you doing?
I'm all right, Rhys. How are you?
I'm fine. Did you have a good week?
I had a week.
You had a week.
It's school.
Yeah, school's hard work sometimes.
Yeah, it's coursework and exams at the moment, so I had a week. How about you?
Yeah, not a problem. You must have a tough boss.
Yeah, he's a real shit.
You need to have a word with him, I think. Okay, so the idea is we're going to split this podcast into 3 sections, and the first one we're going to do is the misconception corner. So there are common misconceptions within our subjects, I think. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
That is fair to say.
Yeah, and hopefully we can iron out some of those misconceptions between us and maybe to you listeners as well who might have this or these common misconceptions.
Mm-hmm. That's the idea.
I think it's only fair maybe we start with the history one because I think we started with the geography one last week.
Okay.
The last time.
Sure.
Yeah. So I'm happy to go with it, yeah.
Okay. Well, here's a sentence that you don't hear every day. Describe a Viking.
Describe a Viking. Yeah. So I would say they have the helmet and the horns.
No, stop.
Oh,
already.
Really? Already?
There he goes, straight into misconception corner.
Oh, really? They don't have horns on their helmets?
That is literally my misconception for the week. Vikings didn't have horns on their helmets.
Who decided then that they were going to put them on?
Wagner.
Who's Wagner?
Richard Wagner, the opera composer from the 19th century.
What a bastard.
Yeah, well, he kind of Nazi stuff as well, so definitely in the bastard
Oh, wow.
corner.
So he's more of a bastard for that, if anything.
Yeah. Welcome to Bastard Corner, full of misconceptions.
Yeah.
No, he wasn't a Nazi, but his sister was, and the Nazis really liked Wagner, but not because of the horned helmets, but when they were putting on the Rheingold... is it a quintet? I think it's a quintet of operas, 5 different operas. It's all about kind of Odin and kind of old Germanic mythology to do with the Rhine. And so one of the set dressing things they thought was, let's get Vikings and put horns on their helmets because it looks cool.
Yeah, they do. They look cooler. That's the thing.
It does look cool.
But would they actually have a purpose is the thing.
Yeah, but it's kind of the opposite of the purpose of a helmet. Because if think about it, you're in a battle, what do you not want people to be able to do? Grab your helmet and rip it off you.
And then stab you with it. What's
a helmet good for? Grabbing, ripping, stabbing.
Yeah.
If it's got horns on it. You
don't want that to happen. Not at all. Okay.
Absolutely not. No.
I see, but when kids draw them on paper, for Vikings, and that's
yeah. But Rhys, you know fully as well as I do that kids are idiots.
Oh, that is mostly true. That yes,
get paid
yeah. That is. They are stupid.
Yeah. No. So that's a misconception.
Okay.
So yeah, it was a 19th century thing. They may have worn cool things like big deer antlers on their heads, and dear listeners, I'm doing now deer antlers coming out of my heads. For religious ceremonies and things like that, but we haven't found any. We found one Viking helmet, and it was just like a little metal cap, essentially.
I see. So there's only one Viking helmet ever been discovered?
Yeah. Yeah.
So everything... What if that was the one where it was a manufacturing problem?
That was just Greg's helmet, and he didn't want horns. Everyone else wanted horns.
Everyone else wanted horns. So what happens if they did have horns?
Well, maybe they did, but we've got no proof for it. It's like, what if they all rode bicycles? Maybe they did, but we got no proof for it.
Not in the fjords, though. That's a nightmare to drive.
That is. Be very fit. Good legs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. That's cool. I did not know that. So I fell straight into your trap.
You did.
Yeah.
You did. That wasn't even difficult.
That wasn't hard. See, okay. I can go with my one now. Mine is not necessarily... I'm not going to trick you into it.
You're not going to make me look like a melt.
No. But hopefully... although I've got... Speaking of melting...
Okay. Smooth.
Yeah. Deserts are hot.
Are they?
Well, that's the thing. How would you define a desert?
So, hot and dry is what I'd say. Like, you think Atacama, you think Sahara, You think Gobi.
And these are all, they are legitimate deserts,
Yeah.
but the temperature has nothing to do with them whatsoever. You define a desert by its aridity, by how dry it is. So this is quite interesting because lots of people have a misconception. When we talk about Antarctica, that is a desert. It is a cold desert.
It's not that dry, is it?
No, but at some point there would have been some snowfall or a rainfall millions and millions of years ago, and because it's always cold down in the South Pole, it's just frozen there, and there's been no. And there's lots of wind in Antarctica, but not enough to have any sort of weathering on the. So much so that it's broken. I'm talking kilometers of ice thickness. You need to remember Antarctica is land-based; it's a continent, whereas the Arctic is just an ocean, which is why it's colder in Antarctica as well, because land has a higher range of temperature differences through night and day, whereas the sea has more of an equable climate, as they call it. So the Antarctica is there are some parts of Antarctica where it hasn't rained for 15 million years.
So, what, 15 million years?
Yeah. So if you want to go to a place where it doesn't rain...
Antarctica.
It's
a bit tricky to get there, to be fair.
It is. You have to go down from Chile and Argentina, I think, to get down there. And it costs about 10,000 euros to head down there. It's pretty expensive.
And then what do you do in Antarctica?
Yeah, you meet some penguins. If you boil them, you turn them into Guinness. Is that what you do with penguins? Or have I misread that? Is that maybe its own misconception?
I don't know if that's a misconception or just a mental illness. You boil penguins and turn them to Guinness.
Yeah, because the white stuff floats to the top.
Oh, God.
Yeah. No, I don't know. It's just
I'm sorry, listeners. I'm sorry. That was my fault.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have let him get away with it.
No. But there was one more thing very interesting quickly. There are two types of plants that grow in Antarctica, and they are the Antarctic hairgrass and the Antarctic pearlwort.
I don't believe you.
This is very true.
I'm refusing to believe this.
They're on the
Really?
South Orkney Islands and the South Shetland Islands.
Even more miserable than the real Orkney and real Shetland.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. There's no Scottish people in these ones. Not even they want to go there.
Wow.
No. But there are two plants that grow there, and there's usually some type of worm that lives there as well.
But how do they grow if it's so dry?
That unfortunately I don't actually know. But I think it's my hunch would be it's at the coastline, and there's some sort of nutrients there that would allow them to grow.
Yeah,
but the rest of Antarctica is pretty much just white, windy, and a couple of German scientists, probably British scientists, who lived there for half the year.
I thought you were describing me after Christmas dinner for a second there, white and windy. But German scientists don't live inside me. You'll be very glad to hear.
But they would come out of interesting data, I'm sure.
So does a desert have to be on Earth? Because there's no...
Well, it doesn't rain in space, does it?
No, but it does rain on some planets, just not water.
Like acid, or it's sort of I know. So there's Saturn has there's some on Saturn, or is it Jupiter's moons? It has lots of sort of acidic, weird rain.
I think it might be Io's got methane.
Yeah, it might
rain.
be methane. That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah. You don't want to be caught out of an umbrella there.
No, that's a weekend gone badly wrong.
Yeah, but could also weekend gone well if you've managed to get that far out the solar system.
True, that is fast travelling.
It's very quick for a weekend.
Yeah,
I can barely get to Düsseldorf for a weekend. We must tell the listeners we live in West Germany, just to make that clear.
He's not just picking random European cities.
No. Cool. Yeah, so that's Misconception Corner.
Excellent. Do we have a jingle for it?
Well, whatever the jingle is, they're about to hear it right now.
All right, let me lure you out of Misconception Corner and into Gap-Filling Alley, which is not a place you want to be caught.
That's smooth. That's very smooth.
Next to, where's the weirdest place you've ever seen an animal?
The weirdest place I've ever seen an animal?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. My beard? Small animal, maybe? No.
What animals do you get in your beard?
Well, do you count insects as animals?
We need a biology teacher in here.
Yeah, we haven't got one.
I think technically they're insects.
Okay, so no. So the weirdest place... just recollecting, I probably have seen dogs swim too far out on the ocean before. That's a weird place to see an animal.
That is.
Yeah.
It's quite disconcerting.
It is quite disconcerting. And
Keep
it's
it
a
light.
problem with the owner, I think.
Yeah.
Well, it could be a wild dog, I suppose.
Could be a wild dog.
But if they've got a leash on, that probably isn't a wild dog.
Wild dog of the ocean, aka a seal.
Oh, yes.
What about in court?
What is it, the judge?
No, it's the convicted. We're going back to
Wait a minute. I didn't.
Yeah.
I know there are animal welfare rights and people can get in trouble for being cruel to animals, but can
arrest
animals get in trouble being cruel to humans or each other?
Boy, can they? Yeah. We're going back to medieval France, 1457, in a town called Sévigny, and it's getting all true crime over here.
Wow.
Decapitated corpse of a 5-year-old child is found bloody and gored in the streets.
Medieval Europe sounds terrible.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. Pretty weird place. Everything smells like poo because nobody washes. Everything's covered in mud because there's mud everywhere. And pigs roaming the streets just mauling kids left, right and centre.
So this is anarchy?
Yeah, pretty much.
But is there any sort of upper echelons of class at all in these?
Yeah, there is, yeah, for sure. And I mean, this is kind of the point of what happens in Sévigny. That so a pig is found covered in blood with a sow with her 6 little piglings, and they're all covered in blood as well. And they're kind of mauling this corpse of this child, which keep it light.
You wait to my fact.
Oh God. So, but what you would naturally expect would be they would just kill the pig immediately. Just kill the pig because it's a dangerous pig. I mean, that's what happens with dogs that attack children. They get destroyed, is the euphemism. But no, they arrested the pig.
Did they put handcuffs on it? I hope they did.
Handcuffs, please.
Oh, sorry.
Come
Yeah,
on.
of course, the handcuffs. Yeah.
Come on. That's the first.
Is that why they call policemen pigs?
It is. Yeah.
That's exactly why.
So, little Piggy, who is not named, unfortunately, we don't know.
Really?
the name
No
of the pig.
name?
No. But Piggy's arrested and put on trial, along with the 6 piglings. Piglets. And the owner as well. The owner's arrested too, because obviously. And because this is medieval France, they go through a proper full trial. There are 2 lawyers for the prosecution, which is just a brilliant payday. And then there's 1 lawyer for the defence, which is not as good a payday.
No, how'd you...
All right, don't tell me if you did it or not.
Yeah.
I said I don't want to know if you did it or not.
Did they choose this lawyer based on the fact he could speak pig? Because it's important. That's important.
It is important. You want to be able to represent your client as well as possible.
Absolutely.
And make sure they don't go about telling porkies.
No,
Come on.
very good.
And that's 2. Adding to that, there are witnesses as well. We've got 9 witnesses that were named.
Are some of them pigs?
None of them are pigs. No.
See, I think that's unfair on
It's a
the
stitch-up,
pig.
isn't it? Absolute stitch up.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they put the pig on trial and they accuse it. And in the court documents, it says that the pig was especially poorly behaved because they got the pig up in the court. And I like to imagine it with its little trotters on the witness stand.
Yeah. Just dear listener, Will has put his hands
I have, of course, put
as
my
if
little
they're
trotters.
Yeah, they're looking very good.
Thank you. I prepared them specially. Yeah, and it's a pig. It doesn't speak English. So when the judge
Doesn't speak anything.
No, true.
Or French.
Grunts rudimentarily.
Is it in France?
It is in France. It doesn't speak English or French.
Or French.
It's not even monolingual. It's alingual. And yeah, in the court documents it says over and over again, pig starts misbehaving. Pig poos in the court. Pig starts grunting.
It's okay with poos in the court, but there's always poo everywhere in medieval times.
Exactly. So
Doesn't
if
matter.
anything,
Yeah.
it's helping.
Probably the jury are pooing in the court as well.
Hang on, not everyone's incontinent. It's not. Although actually, the water. Yeah. All right. Maybe everyone was incontinent.
Maybe just piles of poo everywhere and people can't control it.
Pretty
Sounds
much.
like medieval times?
More or less.
It just sounds like an awful place to live.
Yeah. Yeah, death is right round the corner. But I think that's what's going on with this because they find the pig guilty because
It was found guilty.
bang to right.
Terrible lawyer.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, your client's covered in blood, mauling the corpse of a 5-year-old child. I mean, bang to rights. They'd find the owner guilty, but not of murder. They find him guilty of negligence.
Well, that would make more sense then.
Yeah. But
because surely the owner is the real is the real problem here.
Yeah, you would think, but that's not how they saw it at all. They saw it as the pig was the problem.
It's like they're assuming the pig has a conscience here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what I don't understand about this is why not only one or two people think they should arrest the pig, but for everyone to go, oh yeah, we should arrest the pig. Everyone to go, yeah, needs to be done. It's important because the pig did it.
Wouldn't it be absolutely mental if this wasn't an isolated case?
It's
not an isolated case
There's
at all.
More?
There are loads, yeah. So
animals being arrested.
The sentence for this pig, by the way, is it was hanged from its hooves. And
that's awful.
Surrounded by other criminals as well.
Oh,
Not
really?
Human
More pigs?
Criminals. No, human this time. It wasn't taken to a slaughterhouse. No.
Okay, so they
Just
didn't
hanged by a
serve
tree
it up.
as a warning for other pigs.
Oh right.
The piglets got off though. You'll be glad to.
Oh, I'm pleased to hear that. Yeah.
But no, there were cases of cockerels being tried for witchcraft.
What?
Because they laid eggs, and male chickens shouldn't be able to lay eggs.
There's been a mistake somewhere there.
Witchcraft.
Of course, yeah.
Bang to rights.
Yes.
Locusts for trespassing, which is just good.
Isn't that what they do?
Yep.
How do you arrest a locust?
With difficulty. Personal favourite, horses for sodomy.
Wow, there's a lot.
Unfortunately, it wasn't passed down with whom nor in what configuration. If
Right.
you catch my drift.
So,
So I'll leave that up to your imagination.
I mean, the thing with that one is there's. That's come from a rumor. Someone's gone. That horse has been up to no good. Did that rumor spread among the horses? Did the victim say that horse just did that? Because I think that's more of the victim's problem.
Yeah.
If they've got into that situation where they've been on the end of horse sodomy.
Unless the horse was on the end, so to speak. I mean, we don't know who was Batman and who was Robin.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Wait.
If the horse has been arrested after being sodomized,
Now he's had a terrible,
that's an
terrible
awful
turn of events.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. I didn't have. I've got one more thing to talk about, but I just off the top of my head, I saw another thing where someone, a 16-year-old boy, was arrested in New England in about 1600 for having intimate relations with sheep, and he was going to be executed. But to rub it in, they executed every single sheep that he stumped before they then killed him.
Oh, that's gotta be
so cruel.
That's really harsh.
That's horrible.
That's taking everyone down with you.
Exactly.
But
poor guy.
But
there's another case from France as well. All of these.
Why is it all in France? What's it in France?
It's the French. You've got to love them.
They're just mental.
Gotta love the
They're
French.
so eccentric.
They are. And speaking of which, I watched a video this week of. Do you know who Alexander Dugin is?
No, I don't know.
So he's a basically fascist philosopher from Russia.
Okay.
He wrote about 30 books, some of which are super influential in Russia. They're studied at the military college, and he has the ear of Putin apparently. But I watched a debate between him and Bernard-Henri Lévy, who's one of the leading French philosophers, about 75 years old. But he is the most French man you could possibly imagine.
Okay.
Like throughout the whole of the debate, he's just stood there with the most perfectly manicured hair, disgustingly handsome, even though he's 75 years old.
Of course.
Shirt unbuttoned below his sternum. He's going, "You are Nazi, you are Nazi." I love the French.
And it's just like a heartthrob for everyone.
Completely, yeah. He's on his third marriage, and all of them have been actresses.
I see. Well,
it's the French, ladies and
I
gentlemen.
was gonna, when you say he's 100% proper French, I was gonna go up and say, what does he smell? Completely smell of garlic. But I think that's a very bad generalisation to make for the whole French population.
Yeah, no, he's more the suave kind of French. I mean, and just look at their presidents. Current president married his teacher, who he met when he was 15 and she was 38.
That's
very French.
French, yes.
Previous, François Hollande got in big trouble for visiting his mistress on a moped, which is just very French. And then the previous one, Nicolas Sarkozy, married Carla Bruni, who went out with Mick Jagger for about 10 years.
Oh, wow.
They're just so French.
That is... I mean, and they're the kind of people that have wine and smoke at lunchtimes and then just don't do any work really.
drink tiny, tiny cups of coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually genuinely read philosophy books.
I'm coming around to the French a lot more.
You gotta love it.
I was against the French for a while, and I didn't want to be French ever. But now you're talking about their lifestyle, the lavish.
That's the thing.
They're pretty cool.
We English are just so self-conscious that we couldn't possibly drink a tiny cup of coffee because it just looks ridiculous.
It looks ridiculous, but also I don't imagine the French are very prudish either.
Oh no.
And the Brits are
Yeah.
very prudish.
Yeah. Like, have you ever been to a sauna in Germany?
I have.
How do you find it?
See, I don't know. Maybe I break the mold slightly. I don't really care that I'm walking around naked in a German sauna because the Germans love it.
That's the thing.
They get everything out and they show it. I mean, they don't care.
They do not care.
No. But when the Brits are there though, because they have the towels.
Because they have the towels and the swimming trunks.
Yeah. I assume that you've been to a sauna.
I have, yeah, and I genuinely felt a little bit of my Englishness just kind of evaporate off in the sauna.
Into Europeanness.
Exactly, yeah. Just half the towel comes open, the other half the towel comes open,
Yeah.
and ich bin echt europäisch.
Genau.
Yeah.
that was our multilinguistic section, by the way.
Let's apply for EU grants now. But I got one more, which was rats. Rats on trial as well.
Rats on trial?
Yes. So back in France, of course, different part of France called Autun this time, which was a little bit further down. And,
south.
Kind of east of the centre of France, so not all the way down in the south, which is relevant. And what happens is they've been destroying property because they're rats. They eat
that's what they do.
That's what they do. So the church puts them on trial because it's property owned by the church, and they're represented by a guy called Bartholomew Bar. I paid for a degree in French. I'm going to get this right. They're represented by a guy called Bartholomew Chassenet, who
Very good.
He kind of sees this as an opportunity of, I'm going to make my name here. I'm going to stamp my mark on the legal history books by representing rats. So he turns up to court, and the bishop's vicar who's putting on the trial says, where are the rats? They've got to come because they've been summoned. And Chassenet, who I just imagine is either the most irritating or the most brilliant person ever, says, well, hang on a minute, you only posted summons for these rats in the town, but the rats don't live in the town, they live outside of the town. So how can they possibly read your summons if you haven't posted them around?
That's a really good point.
It is, except the bishop's vicar doesn't point out that they are rats.
Well,
they do not read.
But they also don't have addresses or postcodes or anything.
You can't send the bailiff round.
No.
So the bishop's vicar, who I think must be dense, he must have a couple of screws loose, says, oh yeah, good point. This Sunday.
That's a very good point.
We didn't post summons, so they do. Yeah. They, at the end of the church service, when they have kind of notices for the parish, they say, and any rats in the diocese must turn up to Autun to be put on trial by this date.
And with that notice, they will be there.
Yes.
They have to be.
Yes.
You know.
And I hope that there were at least some priests who thought they had to translate it.
Into rat.
Congratulations to Jeanette and Michelle for the birth of their child. And
yeah, I don't know how you describe that.
So time runs out. Obviously, the rats don't turn up, and so the bishop's vicar says, "All right, I call the court to order. There's no rats." Monsieur Chassenet comes up with his second coup de grace, which he says, "Well, hang on a minute. You wouldn't summon someone to court if you know that their being there would put their life in danger, would you?"
No,
that's fair enough.
No, that's fair enough. Yeah, of course.
Well, how are the rats going to turn up to Autun when the town's full of cats?
Oh,
You need to round up every single cat in the town.
there's a phrase called "It's like herding cats."
Yes, exactly. Yes.
So that's a tricky job.
It is. It is. And I just imagine Chassenet sits down, takes a sip of tiny coffee, and the smuggest look on his face possible, because obviously they can't. But the bishop's vicar doesn't go, "Can you just not?" Instead, he says, "Oh yeah, good point.
A good point, of course. Good point.
Fine, let's round up all the cats."
Yeah.
Which they never do. And they never have a third trial date.
They would still be doing it to this day.
Exactly.
It's impossible. And because that's perpetual. Because, you would round up enough, but the ones you didn't round up would have more cats of themselves, and more cats and kittens will come, and then it would just get out of control.
It would be crazy. So they just never have the third trial day. So rats get off completely scot-free.
That's unfair. Unjust. Is my full opinion on that.
I don't know. I have power to the rat people.
Power to the rattators.
So obviously the question is why.
Yes.
And there's a couple of different theories. First one, money. You make money off court. Like,
Okay.
lawyers make money, judges make money, everyone makes money. But the law courts at this point in time are held by either the church or the local lord. There is no central legal system. And so nobody's actually making any money off it. So it can't be money.
So it can't be money.
Could be a deterrent for the pig one, deterring the owner from leaving his pigs to go wild.
Oh, I see. So if you blame the pig, you can't blame the owner?
Yeah.
Is that kind of what that means there?
But then why would you put the rats on trial? Rats do not have owners.
No. So that's just, yeah.
I think it's more subtle than that. I think it's the idea we had at the beginning. The medieval period is... The line between civilization and chaos is so thin during the medieval period.
There's a blurred line between humans and non-humans.
So how do you stamp your authority on it? Everything has to go through some kind of process of order, so that if there is a chaotic happening where a kid gets mauled by a pig, then we have to make it not chaotic by bringing it into the realm of civilization.
Oh my goodness.
So we apply our order of human beingness to it.
So what I find so surprising about this is that there needs to be a differentiation between humans and animals, and this is how we are going to achieve it. Like, that's nuts to think that like, it's very obvious to me and you, hopefully, as a human being, not like I hope you're a human being, like
Kind of.
but the fact that I know what an animal is, and I know that therefore that's a different thing entirely. It's not a human. We've pulled ourselves out of the food chain, and then
Yeah, except, see, I have opinions on this, and as you well know, I'm a vegetarian and have been for a long time.
Yes.
My thinking on this is, yes, we have pulled ourselves out of the food chain, but, I mean, the best way of summing it up is from the Bible, and I'm not a Christian, but in the Bible it says man has dominion over the animals, which means they are the animal's lord, or they are the animal's father. And if you've got a father that strings up 16 billion chickens a year in order to have like a chicken nugget that you're probably going to eat 2 of and then chuck in the bin, that's not a very...
It's not a
fantastic way of doing things. So
of course not.
So kind of blurring the line I can see, but then if that line is blurred, and it was blurred in the medieval period...
Then pigs go to court.
Then pigs have to go to court. If you're going to have cows in your home,
Yeah.
which you will, because where else are you going to keep them?
Yeah.
Then they have to be subject to the laws of man as well.
But does it work the other way around as well? So the pigs come to court, do humans have to do animal things?
God, we would be in trouble.
Are we?
Like Nuremberg trials times by 1 million. Jesus.
Yeah.
Ronald McDonald shackled up in handcuffs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh my goodness me. Yeah.
So I like that idea because it's a silly story. It's a very funny story.
It's a really silly story.
But it's also a very human story.
Yes.
What we do is we impose order on the world around us. I mean, think of like pareidolia, where you see faces and things.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You know, the house that looks like Hitler, for example.
Yeah.
You've seen that?
No, I haven't seen that. A house that looks like Hitler. Is there a Hitler that looks like a house? But then I don't know if it works.
No, he was quite skinny, actually.
Yeah. He was a vegetarian, wasn't he?
He was a vegetarian, yes.
So he's not all bad.
He probably did it for some weird reasons. I don't actually know why he was a vegetarian, but I'm certain it must have something to do with racism, because everything the Nazis do is racist at some level.
He used to paint, didn't he, as well?
Yeah, he's a terrible painter.
Okay.
Really boring.
Why was he boring?
Because his art's just... So he was a painter in Vienna at the turn of the century. And at the same time in Vienna, you've got Freud, you've got Klimt, you've got Strauss, you've got Lenin, you've got, I think Stalin was there for a bit, Trotsky.
It's pretty spicy.
Yeah, it is. It's like, I don't know, it's like Paris in the 1920s or something. It's the place to be. And in amongst all this incredible milieu of art and thought and creation, you've got Hitler painting like crap postcards, essentially. There's no art to it. It's just boring.
I see. He should have spent a lot of time, I assume, doing that when he probably... He probably took his time away from all the destruction he was probably doing, or he was doing elsewhere.
Yeah, but then had he not... I mean, this is the thing. Like, if Hitler keeps on being an artist, does that mean that we don't have the Nazis? Absolutely not. No, that means we have a much worse version of the Nazis. I was just watching a documentary about this yesterday, because this is how I live my life.
Fair enough, yeah.
History documentaries whilst knitting.
Sorry.
None of those are euphemisms. I don't even know what would be a euphemism for.
I have no idea.
No,
but
I'm knitting myself a pair of socks at the moment.
Yeah. Going into summer, may I just...
Well, winter comes round again. Everything's cyclical.
That is true, actually.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
There was a plot to assassinate Hitler by the British in, I think it was 93 or 43 or 44. Not 93. A little bit late. Kind of missed the boat there. And they decided not to go through with it because they realised if you get rid of Hitler, then someone more competent takes over. And Hitler made mistake after mistake after mistake.
And that's exactly who you want in power.
Exactly. Just a bungling idiot.
Yeah.
Which he was. So, no, Nazism's much bigger. I don't know how we got on that from pigs. But
isn't it what Napoleon once said? Never interrupt your opponent when he's making a mistake.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, which kind of came back to bite him in the bum with Russia.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So I've called my section for the geography gap filler is called Silent but Deadly. Yeah? But actually, I suppose more of the question here is, I want you to describe to me what dangerous waters would look like.
Okay. Neither silent, but definitely deadly. Yeah. So dangerous waters, big waves with rip currents, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never been caught in them, but my wife has. When we were off the coast of Cape Verde, they were kind of
terrifying,
massive breakers. And I thought they were just having a good time because I didn't have my glasses on. I couldn't see anything. I just see them kind of, yay, good time.
Yeah.
And her dad, it was her and her sister, and her dad was like, or whatever the Slovak equivalent of that is, sprinted in and managed to like hoik both of them out.
I see. Yeah, because riptides can be really dangerous at the coast because you can be unsuspecting, and and water is extremely powerful, especially when I was about to say when it all works together. Of course, it all works together. When there's a lot of it, it can be extremely powerful. But this one, the most dangerous body of water in the world, is actually a little bit closer to home, and is in England. Surprisingly, were you aware of this? Because there is a place called the Strid, and it's near Bolton Abbey in North Yorkshire, and it is in the upper course of the river is called the Wharfe, and it's at the upper course of the river, and it's when we have a body of the upper course. So in the upper course of the river, we have what they call vertical erosion. So that means the water, when it erodes, it erodes downwards rather than lateral, where it goes horizontal. So you get these kind of deep valleys that exist in the river, and as they start to erode, they start to go downwards, and you create potholes. And when you have this type of erosion where the pebbles start to bash against the floor, and they create massive potholes, and they make these little underground caves. But there is this part of this river where it's doing that, but it also flows over a very specific type of geology, which is softer rock, and then it goes over harder rock again, and the river effectively turns on its side. Yeah, a river that turns on its side and creates an underground waterfall that no one can see.
Wow.
And then about 50 meters later, it goes into the middle section of the river, which is usually a little bit wider, and that's where we start to see meanders and so on. But this specific section of the river, which is about maybe 50 meters in length, is just like a rocky outcrop. Mm-hmm. And the river width itself at this point, as it goes into it, is maybe about 8 feet wide, maybe 8 to. So you could jump across it.
So that's like as tall as I am.
Yeah, so it's exactly just about. But the thing is, I say it's silent but deadly, is because the way that the water is flowing on the surface, it just looks like a slow flowing river that you could easily just dip into and just swim around, and it may be quite fun because it does move obviously slowly forwards. You could get like a little dinghy and go down this river, but actually about a foot underneath, the water is mental, and it is just going vertical erosion and just going through the underground cave system, which you cannot see on the surface.
And it just pulls you straight down.
And it just not only does it pull you straight down. It pulls you straight down at speed, like being hoiked. Just absolutely pulled, like in the Rapture, where they the other way, for example, they pull you out your clothes, something like that. It would just drag you down.
Just yanks straight down to a watery
hell.
And
there are some stories of where this has happened. So there's some signs because it's a hiking route as well, apart through Bolton Abbey that you can go by. And there are these signs that in this area that say, "Do not approach the river; it's slippery, and if you fall in, the fatality rate is 100%."
Wow!
So it's insane. And what happened? There have been some stories of people, both in history and in modern times, have walked and fallen into this. And there have been stories that people have gone into it, and then as they've come out to the end of the river, in the middle section of the river, they have been unrecognisable because they have been churned up so much by all the underground caves that have been sort of like carved out for all this rapids and potholes that have been created under this rocky sort of landscape within this area.
So it's like when Wile E. Coyote gets pulled into like a big Acme factory machine or something, gets hammered and beaten and...
Pretty much, but the difference there is he's also drowning.
And drowning.
So it's the full whack.
Quite literally.
It's a way to go. Like, but there's some interesting. So there's some interesting stories. So there have been some modern fatalities there. There's a really sad story. But also, before I get to that, this particular body of water has been described by William Wordsworth. And he's written a poem about it, and it's called "The Force of Prayer." And I want to read you like the section of it, kind of as he describes a young boy's journey to this part of the river. And he says, I just want to say one thing. Reading poetry from William Wordsworth, I might botch it slightly because it's a bit weird just to read. But it says, and what may now forbid that he, perhaps the 100th time, shall bound across the Strid. He sprang in glee, for what cared he that the river was strong and the rocks were steep? Then there's a question mark. The rocks were steep. The boy is in the arms of Wharf and strangled by a merciless force. For nevermore was young Ramilly seen till he rose a lifeless corpse.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah, so you get a picture of maybe what it was like to fall in as a young boy.
Absolutely. No, you can imagine someone just leaping over it. Time after time, doesn't matter.
Well, this is the thing.
It's not very wide.
Because not only is it incredibly dangerous, it looks like nothing. It's just like slow-moving water. And also, it's jumpable. This is the thing. People jump over it. And if you didn't know, like, it's one of those places I imagine going with my sister, for example. She'd just want to push me in as a joke. Like, but she'd also murder me at the same time.
Pretty good joke.
It is a pretty good joke, yeah. Well, yeah, wow. Maybe, yeah. But it was a hell of a way to go. What a journey that would be. You wouldn't know much about it, I don't think. It just pulls you straight under. But it's pretty rapid. But there has been a story, and it was in 2000, I think, in 2006. There was some newlyweds. So already it's quite a tragic story already.
Oh, God.
They're on their honeymoon in the UK, and they went
That's
through...
also tragic.
It's also tragic. It doesn't get any better. No. There is a part of this story I need to discuss because there's something I'm not quite sure about. Okay. But it's these two newlyweds, 25, 27-year-olds. They went for a walk around this area. That's the last time they were seen, where they went out for a hike or for a stroll around Bolton Abbey. And then they never came back, and their bodies were never found until about a month and a half later. And someone found, like, as described, human remains, which is always a disgusting way to have in the newspaper or whatever. But they said there was no foul play involved, and the likelihood is that they just either got too close, thought it was safe, or slipped in. But that's both of them. So one's gone in, and one's gone in after them, either to save or to join. I don't know what one that would be. Yeah. But there's a spokesperson here, or someone that kind of witnessed something, and
spokesperson for
for
water did nothing wrong.
Yeah, we take the water to court. The water is on trial. Be a water lawyer. Yeah, that doesn't. Yeah. Can you speak water?
You're fluent. I'm not proud of myself. I'm sorry, people.
But so this is Mr. Thomas of Pembroke Dock in Pembrokeshire. Said the level, speed, and turbulence of the water looked like flood water. So what happened was that in this it flooded in a very quick time. The waters famously rises very quickly when it floods here, and so it can really catch you very unaware. And it said it rose in a matter of feet in seconds. I went to the water's edge, and just as I got there, I saw a man's body, who I now know to be Barry, who was the male of this newlywed, pop out of the water.
Wow,
it was quite,
Jesus.
Yeah, right. So whoop, like this, and he said the face popped up towards me.
Oh no!
And within a matter of seconds, it disappeared.
Oh my God!
Yeah, so it's pretty like
that's the most terrifying thing I can imagine.
Yeah, so he saw the male of this couple, his head pops up.
And did he say that this was like a month later?
Yeah, so this, and you're hitting the point here. This is at the time. So he's seen this.
Well, that's normal.
He's seen this happen. He's
Not
gone,
gonna report
oh,
that
look,
to the
someone's
police."
fallen into the street. I know that's dangerous. Oh, his head's popped up. It probably looks quite lifeless. Or he's alive. He really is injured. Oh, see ya.
Bye.
Yeah, bye. And I'll just forget about it. I'll talk about it in the tabloids later.
Have a nice walk there, Mr. Thomas. Absolutely nothing noteworthy whatsoever.
No, I didn't see a single thing. No. And that's the bit I can't get my head around. So maybe, just so there's a slight chance, is there foul play? Did he push them in?
I mean, I can think of 3 explanations. So the first one is foul play. He pushed him in.
Yeah.
The second one is 100% fatality. He just thought, there's nothing I can
That's
do.
true, isn't it?
Yeah, just let it wash down. Someone else will find it. But then in which case, just call the police. Number 3 is that he was on some extraordinarily powerful hallucinogens.
Yes.
And just thought, okay, it's that time of the trip, I guess.
Yeah, it's that time. Yeah.
It's time for corpses to appear out of the water.
Yeah. But then then came to his senses later and talked about it in the paper. And just by coincidence.
Now it turns out I wasn't actually monged off my face. That was a corpse. Whoopsie-doo.
Whoops a daisy. Yeah. So but yeah, so it is a really tragic story.
It's horrible.
Yeah, it's nasty.
I
But,
mean, the only kind of solace is that at least like one of them didn't have to survive looking for that person.
oh, that would be awful, wouldn't it? Yeah,
Well, that's
that
not
would
really
be
solace.
terrible. They've both gone together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever watch videos of people on YouTube going down like cave holes and into that kind of thing?
I have done. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
There are people that like bungee jump or like skydive into some of them. They're so deep. I've said, I don't know what is that skydiving? I don't really know.
I guess you're diving from the sky.
I suppose so. Yeah, underground diving. But yeah, it is terrifying what they do. There has been some horrible stories. There's one I think in Nevada where some guy went down into a cave system that was unventured, and he got wedged and stuck upside down, and they genuinely couldn't get him out. So the only way, they couldn't even keep him alive after a while because it was dangerous for other people to go in. So they were like, "Are we just going to have to leave you there?" And that's it. And he obviously perished.
All right, fine, fair enough.
And then
I would wave, but
that's quite tricky. I'm wiggling my toes. That's me waving. And then they blocked the cave off, so I went down there again.
oh come on,
Yeah. So. Yeah,
Jesus.
Just shut it off. That was I think it's in Nevada that happened. Yeah,
Wow.
but it's terrifying. It's spelunking. I think
Spelunking, yeah.
they call it.
I will occasionally watch a video just to reassert my own lifestyle choices.
Yes,
I do appreciate
you are not built for spelunking.
No, absolutely not. And watching Nazi documentaries whilst knitting isn't the most adrenaline kind of consuming way of spending my life.
No, but you're safe.
But I'm never getting stuck upside down anywhere.
No, absolutely. But there was one thing. I've gone spelunking in Iceland before.
Have you?
Through the volcanic activity, as like the lava's gone underground and carved out all these caves. And this may sound really stupid to say this now, but when we're in the caves and you turn off all your lights, it sounds really stupid for me to say it is the darkest place I've ever visited, but like genuinely, when there is an absolute absence of light, it is extraordinarily eerie and it's crazy. And we all went silent, and it does feel like you could be dead because there literally is just nothing, just thought. The only thing keeping me alive was, I think, therefore I am kind of idea. That literally was it. You could easily turn into a philosopher if you're stuck in a cave for a few days.
Well, that's kind of how Descartes came up with that, with cogito ergo sum. He just locked himself in a cabin for 4 days staring at the fire and then emerged, I think, therefore I am.
Exactly. Yeah, well, that's maybe what it is then.
I stink, therefore I am. I wash, mate. French people. Gotta love them.
Was he French?
Yeah.
Oh, Kant, I suppose, would be. Yeah. It's a very risky surname.
It is. Yeah.
So, is he from Kent? So do you want to hear about some other deadly water, speaking about Iceland?
May as well.
Yeah, so there is...
Terrify me.
So there is one in Dominica called the Boiling Lake.
Okay.
And it's a lake that boils at 90 to 100 degrees Celsius, because obviously it's above volcanic activity and loads of volcanoes. But it's one of the best things is that I read whilst reading this is that hikers and hike guides are advised against swimming in the lake. They advise against swimming in the lake. Now,
and why would that be?
Of course, but it's not forbidden. There's the point I'm making here.
Right.
So you go on a hike, kind of like, yeah, you can. Do you want to swim? They're like, no.
I wouldn't recommend it.
Wouldn't recommend
But I'm not going
it.
to stop you.
I'm not going to stop you though. If you go in there, I'm not coming in after you. Yeah. So I thought that was quite. There are other two deadly waters I want to talk about though. Obviously, the boiling lake. That's quite obvious.
Yeah.
There is one called Lake Natron in Tanzania.
Okay.
You may or may not have heard of this one.
No.
But what this is a river that kind of, as it flows, it ends in a lake, and because it's so hot, it evaporates.
Okay.
So as it evaporates, and what happens is it obviously leaves a lot of salt behind, like the salt flats within Bolivia.
Yeah.
And then as that, obviously, so it's very high pH. But it's been known, there's some famous images where people have taken photographs of like decaying animal corpses, which are quite unnerving. But it's been known that if birds who have fallen in the lake, they start to desiccate as they fly away.
Oh,
just
wow.
fall apart because it's so strong.
They crumble like in a weird sci-fi movie.
Yeah. So they go in and then they start flying away and they just go poof because the salt is so strong and the acid is so strong.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where do you say that is? In Namibia?
It's in Tanzania.
Tanzania, right. So Eastern Africa.
Yeah, Eastern Africa.
Because
yeah.
Natron and Natron, I can't remember what it's called.
So Lake Natron.
Natron, okay.
Yeah.
That was used for mummification by the ancient Egyptians.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's the salt that they would use to help the mummification process. I think they would stuff the corpse with it to preserve it from the inside.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so take all the organs out and stuff the corpse with natron. I think that's how it works.
That's also incredibly disgusting,
Yeah,
that
it
process.
It's horrible.
I don't want that job. And there is one more. This is incredible. So this is Lake. If you had a Lake Nios, it's in Cameroon. So this lake, what had happened was, so this lake it's volcanic again, but this at the bottom of this lake, incredible amounts of carbon dioxide. Was carbon monoxide at that point. And what happens when there's an earthquake? It shakes the bottom of the lake, and carbon
this is going.
Yeah, carbon dioxide starts to seep to the top. Now, carbon dioxide sinks in air around us. Now, the problem is that there was an earthquake in the night, and there were two villages below this lake, one called Chasubum and one called Fang, and they lie just below about 2,000 people. And there was a minor earthquake at night. Hardly anyone could feel it. But in the next day, carbon dioxide had gone all over the village and suffocated everyone.
No.
And this is not just humans. 2,000 people were killed in this event.
Yeah.
Not just humans, all the pets and insects. Everything gone. And the only people that survived were the ones that happened to not be in their village when that overnight, which was about 5 people, I think. Must be terrifying coming back to that. Yeah, but absolutely just suffocated everyone. And that's,
You love that though. All the plants.
Oh, they were
eating up all the carbon dioxide.
Oh, that would be.
Now is this a conspiracy?
Oh my goodness! So that was was it the plant world coming back at us?
Exactly.
Did they shake the earth?
Day of the Triffids. There's a really bad sci-fi book in there.
There is somewhere. Yeah. Oh, and then they come back and eat all the humans and all the remains, and then they just grow.
Yeah. Take over the world from Cameroon.
Jesus.
That's horrible.
It's terrifying, isn't it? I mean, I genuinely get terrified anyway of having carbon monoxide poisoning anywhere I go. It's often in the forefront of my mind every time we go somewhere. But to have like that is like, but you wouldn't know anything about it though.
No. Oh, that reminds me of a Reddit post that I saw, which you may well have seen, where somebody, I can't remember which subreddit it was on, but he was complaining that somebody kept on leaving notes for him around the house, really threatening notes saying, "Watch out, be careful. Something's happening."
Yeah.
Like that. And he had no idea what was going on. And the first comment said, "This is carbon monoxide. You're having carbon monoxide poisoning. You're leaving these notes to yourself. You don't remember it because you're being poisoned by carbon monoxide.
That's incredible.
Get out of the house and fix it as soon as possible."
Oh my God.
And he did. That's exactly what it was. How terrifying is that?
Oh my God, that's mind-bendingly terrifying.
So there you go. There's another thing for you to be frightened of.
Oh God, don't leave any post-it notes around.
Stay safe.
So we're in the final section of the podcast. We're going to call it number time, Will.
Number time.
Number time. So the idea of this is that each of us have a fact that is associated with a number, and we need to try and work out what the link is between the number and the clue. And we're probably not going to be able to ever work it out. But
So is the idea then, so we're working it out. We're not just kind of flailing around.
well, maybe we could try and work it out, but I'm sure I'll have one stab at it, and then maybe you could.
Should I give you some clues?
Maybe
See if we
because
can
I've
get there.
actually because on my notes I've got an extra clue. I've written extra clue.
Okay.
Just in case.
Right.
Because and then you're really
Do you
going
know
to
what?
test
Funnily
me.
enough, so have I.
Yeah. Okay. Good. We're
Okay.
on the same wavelength here. So Will's going to start us off, I think.
Yes. Okay. So the topic, I've interpreted the idea of history quite loosely here, but sure, why not?
Okay.
The topic is the Iliad and the Odyssey,
My God.
and the number is 0.
Oh, Will, that's awful. I don't know anything about this. Like, is it maybe? I don't know how many pages. I know it's a book. How many pages is it? Is it has 0 pages?
No.
That's my.
I mean, technically, it was originally an oral poem, so it wouldn't have been written down. But I'm not giving you that.
You're not
Nope,
giving me
You don't
that.
get the biscuit. No. Okay.
That was my first guess. Can I have a? Do you obviously have a clue?
Yes. Do you know what the Odyssey is about?
Not really. Maybe
Okay.
you could tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah,
and
it's
I
about a guy called Odysseus.
Okay.
And he travels all over the Mediterranean. He's trying to get home after the Trojan War.
Right.
And gods just keep on popping up left, right, and centre and making a nuisance.
But don't you hate when
pushing
that
all over the
happens?
place. It's so annoying.
It's really
I
annoying.
know, like, it should take you 2 weeks and ends up taking you 10 years.
I know. I've
'Cause you
got
get-
some empathy for him there.
Kidnapped by a witch and all your men get turned into pigs. And
Oh.
I hate it when that happens. Okay, so he's travelling about on the sea. What colour is the sea?
The sea is blue.
How many times do you think in the Iliad and the Odyssey together it mentions the word blue?
0.
0 times.
Oh, could I say something? I think I know something.
Yes.
Can I say something? I think
Yeah.
maybe this is the wrong time period, but maybe you can help me here. The Romans didn't call the sky blue; they called it bronze. Is that
Yeah,
right?
same degree, yeah.
Oh my God, I know something about history.
Yeah, no, that's it. So in both the Iliad and the Odyssey, the sky is never called blue; it's called bronze.
Oh, is that what it
And the
is?
sea is called wine-coloured, or specifically
Wine.
is oinops pontos. For those.
Oinot Pontos.
Oinops pontos. Yeah, that's my ancient Greek.
That's going to
GCSE
test a
comes
pop
to play
filter.
there. Yep. Which means wine-eyed. Oin as in enology, people who study wine, and ops as in optician, or
Oh.
optical. So it's wine-eyed sea.
That's really cool.
Which isn't even a description of colour, really.
No, because doesn't wine? Well, what colour is wine then?
Well, wine's kind of scarlet coloured, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like burgundy, funnily enough.
Yeah.
So this was discovered by a Prime Minister from Britain,
What?
William Gladstone, who, as well as being 4 times Prime Minister, I think, during Queen Victoria's reign,
Okay.
flipping loved him a bit of Homer.
He just couldn't get enough. Not Simpson.
Not Simpson, no, hadn't been invented yet. And he wrote a book about the Iliad, wrote many books about the Iliad and the Odyssey, and he pointed out they never mention this colour. And so a philologist, which is somebody who studies ancient texts, called Lazarus Geiger, which is a brilliant name.
That's a
Lazarus
beautiful name.
He looked into this more and studied many, many ancient texts from many different cultures. And he realised almost none of them use the word blue.
Okay.
So it's not just a Roman and Greek thing. Because the original idea that people had was, hang on a minute, does that mean that their eyes aren't fully evolved? Do you have to
Okay.
evolve different wavelengths?
Right, I see. Okay, well, they don't.
But no, that's not how it works. But with the wavelength theory, Geiger came across this idea that, he discovered that every culture has words for black and white. Black and white, every culture has them.
Yeah.
Most cultures have words for red. Some cultures have words for yellow. Fewer cultures have words for green, and very, very few, only more advanced cultures have words for blue, which mirrors the wavelength. I'm almost certainly going to get this wrong. No, the shortest wavelength is red. The longest
Yes.
wavelength is blue.
That's correct. That's why
Yeah.
the sky, as we see, is blue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except, and this is kind of the point that Geiger makes, is the sky actually blue?
Well,
Or do we just interpret it as blue because we have the word for blue? I mean, if I'm looking at the sky over there now, it's actually kind of grey,
it is kind of grey. You're right.
even though it's a beautiful sunny day here in Duisburg.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point because sometimes you see the red at night. No, you don't see the sun at night.
How night works. Great.
Yes, yeah, got that one. No, but during in the morning or in dusk and dawn, they're the words I'm looking
There we
for. The obviously have red skies. I always thought it was because the light had a lot of atmosphere to travel through.
Yeah.
Therefore, you saw the wavelength of red Because technically you could have the Doppler effect. We hear it a lot, by the way, in my apartment because we've got the firehouse just here, which is frightfully loud. But theoretically it's possible to have the Doppler effect on colour. As it goes past, you could have something that goes one side green and then it just changes to yellow as it shoots by because the wavelength changes as it accelerates away from you.
Yeah, well, this is how you measure the gravitational pull of. This is how you find out whether or not there are planets on stars.
Oh, yeah,
because
of course.
the gravitational pull affects the star.
I see.
And it wobbles the wavelength ever so slightly.
This is physics now. This is
It is
crazy.
physics. Well, it's all history, really.
Yeah, there you go.
And so the thinking is, therefore, if you're not surrounded by anything that's blue, because blue flowers are pretty rare, blue vegetables don't exist, blue meat doesn't really exist. I mean, if you look at your arm, you can see the outside of your veins and your arteries looks blue, but does it? It actually looks kind of greeny, and you could interpret it as green. So if the only blue things you see are the sky and the sea, well, the sky is very often not blue. And so's the sea. The sea's kind of a greeny tint, or can be grey, or can be many, many colours. And so the thinking is that the colours that we perceive, the 7 colours, Richard of York gave battle in vain, so red, orange, yellow, blue, green, indigo, violet, are pigments. They're paint. And if you don't have blue pigment, which in the ancient world is extremely rare, only comes from one rock called lapis lazuli, which comes all the way from Afghanistan.
Oh my God.
So all of the Egyptian kind of faience statues that are in blue originate from lapis lazuli from Afghanistan. Greeks don't have it yet. Romans don't really have it yet. So because they're not producing this pigment, they don't need a word for blue.
They don't need a word.
They don't need a perception for blue. They
Oh
don't
my
see it.
goodness.
But the Egyptians do have a word for blue because they have the
They
pigment.
have the pigment we make. Oh my goodness. So blue almost doesn't exist. If it wasn't for Egyptians and Afghanistan rocks. That's incredible.
Yeah, and so the world that we perceive is the world that we perceive.
Yeah.
It's not the world external to our perception.
This is now philosophy.
This is philosophy, which
You're
again
wearing-
is just history.
Pretty much. But you're wearing blue.
I am wearing blue.
Am I wearing blue? No, I'm not. I've got the rainbow
You've
on my...
got the rainbow on there.
I've got the rainbow.
Or do you?
Or have I? Well, there is meant to be a blue
you don't.
strand that's going down. That's quite incredible.
Yeah.
My football team I support plays in blue. Yeah.
Are you sure?
Now I'm not sure. Yeah. Well, maybe that's a reason why they're near the bottom of the table. They're just no one can see them when they're passing the ball around.
Who's that wine-eyed team over there?
So we'll have my number and my clue as well. So my
Number
number
time.
is 75, and the clue is Tuvalu.
Tuvalu, 75. Is it the number of times you can say Tuvalu before it starts to mean nothing?
Yeah, that's a thing, isn't it? Are we going to say it 75 times?
Tuvalu.
I wonder if the listener would appreciate that
One
one.
can't get away with that kind of thing.
Do you know where Tuvalu is?
It's in the Pacific, isn't it?
It
Near
is in the
Fiji
Pacific.
and that.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is. So, if I was to then, so do you? Your 75 saying Tuvalu that many times is not the right answer, by the way.
Oh.
Although I do think it is true. It's not what I was looking for. No, my extra clue, if you'd like an extra clue,
Yep.
is environmental refugee.
Okay. Now, Tuvalu isn't where a volcano went off recently, is it?
It's not. You're thinking of Vanuatu.
Vanuatu.
Vanuatu's what you're
Right,
thinking of
which
there,
is
yeah.
which is in the vicinity.
It's in the vicinity.
It's probably
It's-
still like thousands of miles away.
Yeah, it's not. It's a stone in scale, a stone's throw away, respect of where we're sitting right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. 75. So I'm guessing the number of ecological refugees from a particular event is 75.
Yes, it is. I can explain further.
Yeah.
You're halfway there.
Okay.
So Tuvalu, as we know, is made up of about 10 or 11. I think it's 11 islands. On their flag, they have a star for each island. It's a light blue color, like the Fijian flag. And the problem they have is they have a problem of climate change and sea level rise. And the sea level is significantly rising in the Pacific Islands, and these are the countries that are significantly affected by that we're actually seeing in our lifetimes. Because a lot of this kind of the IPCC, which is the International Panel of Climate Change, put these graphs up, and they go, "Oh, if we have business as usual, we're going to see 1 meter of sea level rise in the future, but in 2100, when most of us will be dead by then." So it's quite hard to actually hopefully, yeah, because the world's going to be a hot and horrible place by then. But we actually see the effects of climate change happening on island nations in the Pacific, such as Tuvalu. There are some other nations around the world which we see that. Bangladesh, for example, 50% of the population live 1 meter above sea level.
Gee, 50%.
50%.
And Bangladesh is not sparsely populated.
No, it's pretty dense. Or around Dhaka, there's a lot going on there. And most of the people that actually live on the water and grow rice on those little fields, it's horrible. And the other place that is more close to home is the Netherlands, but they've decided just to build boathouses and dikes everywhere.
Steady.
Well, it's a key word we have to use.
We've all spent a weekend in Amsterdam.
Exactly. Seen a couple of dikes. but actually it's the first. There's also it's very close to say these are the first climate refugees. And when we talk about climate refugees, these are people having to move away because their land is becoming uninhabitable. Now, it's not necessarily because their land is being flooded. Actually, what it is because as sea level is rising, they're having to migrate further inland into their country, therefore increasing the density of the population.
Right.
So therefore, it's becoming less desirable to live there, and the land is becoming more expensive.
Aha.
So that's why people are now moving, because they
socio-economic.
can't afford to live there as a
wow.
result. So what this 75 is New Zealand have identified this, and they're going, oh shit, this is not their fault that they're having to move, because you need to also remember there's a thing called climate injustice, where you get places like USA, United Kingdom, Germany too as well, all these developed high-income country nations that have polluted the atmosphere and contributed heavily to sea level rise. But the countries that have the biggest impacts are the ones that have contributed the least. So they call it a climate injustice. So as a result of that, New Zealand have identified there's a huge climate injustice here. And they've gone, okay, what we're going to do, not just for Tuvalu, but for all the Pacific Island nations, we are going to give 75 visa residents to people of Tuvalu to come and move to New Zealand and settle. So that's what that is.
Right.
However, it's quite contentious. There's 75.
I bet.
Because it's not that many. It's
really not very
38,000
many
people live in Tuvalu. So 75, they've tried to distribute it evenly across all the Pacific Island nations like Vanuatu and Tonga and American Samoa. But Tuvalu were like, that's not really a lot.
That's a bus and a half.
Yeah, exactly. And we can go there all at once. And that's really not much for us. So there's
a third of a plane.
Pretty much, yeah.
Fill the plane.
Well, I don't know if you've seen the runway on Tuvalu. And Funafuti is the capital, by the way. And the runway is pretty much takes up 60% of that particular island.
Right, I see.
So it's pretty, it's runway dense, I suppose you could describe it. But yeah, they're saying this isn't enough. And even though it is a good gesture, it is a good policy that New Zealand have put in place maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago now, where it isn't enough. So at the moment they're discussing this, and but they're arguing it's not enough. Already 1/5 of Tuvalu's population of 12,000 have left their homes.
1/5?
Yeah, 1/5. So 12,000 Tuvaluans have left Tuvalu to go and live in other Pacific Island nations, like Kiribati, for example. But that causes problems there as well. And sea level rise isn't like... It's also happening there, and they have those problems. But places like New Zealand should be offering a lot more, apparently. And that's their argument. But that's 75 are allowed to have visa work permits in New Zealand from specifically Tuvalu each year. Yeah. It's not great.
No, but New Zealand are quite stingy with that kind of thing. Like my wife's cousin, half their family live in New Zealand, and my wife's from Slovakia, and the New Zealand government releases 2 visas to Slovakia every year for people to move there.
That's insane.
2, and Slovakia is like 5.5 million people. Like it's not a small country particularly. 2.
But that's pretty stingy.
It
2
is.
Slovakians isn't a lot.
It's not very many Slovakians.
That isn't many. I mean,
I can name way more than that.
Yes, well, you have a significant
I
advantage.
do have an
must
advantage
say.
there. Yeah.
I think I can name 2 Slovakians.
Yeah.
I think as a general human being, that's quite impressive.
Can I guess who they are? Veronica Flint.
Yep.
And Marek Hamšík.
Pretty much there.
There we go.
You got
Excellent.
it. Yeah, got it. They were the 2 I knew.
That was it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Gaps in Knowledge podcast. You can find us on our socials, our Twitter, which is @Gaps Podcast, and also we're on YouTube @Gaps in Knowledge Podcast.
And we've got an email address too, which is gapsinknowledge@outlook.com. Don't sign us up for anything dodgy, please. I once got signed up by one of my pupils for the McDonald's newsletter, and I found no way to unsubscribe, which is a very good prank. So gapsinknowledge@outlook.com, and also on Facebook, if you just search for Gaps in Knowledge, then you'll find us there.
Thank you very much for listening, and we look forward to making the next one for you guys to listen to in 2 weeks' time.